I'm Overflow, and today we have some great news. Ubuntu 22.04 LTS is released, and you can download it. Now, normally I don't recommend Ubuntu as like a distro. I'd normally go with Fedora or some other variation like KDE Neon for Windows users. But let's check out Ubuntu for today. So normally it's ubuntu.com. It's pretty easy to use. You just hit get Ubuntu, and then you can just download Ubuntu Desktop. It's a little confusing if you want Raspberry Pi, but you just click up here, you download it, and that's it. So I already have the Ubuntu image downloaded, so let's create a virtual machine for it because I will not be installing it on my drive. So this is always the amazing confusing. Here we go, let's open this. I don't know why the virtual machine manager file browser is still kind of confusing. Let's see if okay, let's just say it's 20.04. Okay, 4 gigs to. Let's do 64. We have space. Okay, I don't know if the 22.04 part is gonna mess with it, but I think it's fine because this is an LTS release. So let's full screen this. Of course, I can't find the button. Yep, there it is. Of course, we have the new logo, which I don't particularly like because I don't like the box around it that extends too much, but otherwise I'm fine with the new logo. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just that I don't like the box part. Alright, it doesn't work. Screen resolution kind of whack with QEMU first, so we're just gonna have to ignore that. So first thing, of course, you have to try or install. Let's try Ubuntu first before we install it to this VM. Okay, let's see if now we display the, no, you can see when it changes from Ubuntu cursor to Breeze cursor. Okay, let's not use this horrible low-res mess anymore and start the installer. So let's hop into settings and see if I can get more resolution. Okay, 1920 by 1080. Alright, this should be good. It doesn't look as bad anymore. Let's go through the installer. So English, I know the keyboard works, it's VM, like compatibility with a VM. Okay, and this is always the part that I didn't like about Ubuntu, is that if you're a beginner and it asks you whether to go with normal or minimal, this is kind of a weird question to ask beginners. And I feel like since it should probably say that the normal install is what you're experiencing right here, and the minimal it has like this list instead of just saying web browser utilities, because this is like not very descriptive. So I think if I had to rate this, I'd definitely dock points because of this. So let's download and then we can do this. I'm pretty sure that they should also say that this installs NVIDIA drivers. So some things to improve is definitely like make the text more descriptive. Let's continue. Race disk, you can partition it. It's not hard to partition, so whatever. It's hard drive, Chicago, your name. Let's put in overflow. Then we can put in a generic password. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna use this VM for anything. Like, of course, nobody knows what Active Directory is, so I guess it's more of like a if you don't know what it is, and you probably shouldn't be choosing it thing. Let's continue. And it almost already finished copying files. That's pretty quick. Let's look at the slides. Fast and full features. Say goodbye for searching the web. I'm pretty sure most people are going to still search for Debs. And of course, it's like weird texting that probably will scare beginners. Take your music with you. Have fun with your. I'm pretty sure this is just the old slides, but they redid them for. Yeah, I'm 100% sure they redid it. Because look at that. That's still the old Firefox tab UI. Let's pop open a Firefox window. And that's still like the old non-flat, I think, non-Gnome 42. I think this runs on Gnome 42. Anyways. everything you need for the office. LibreOffice is fine. I do use LibreOffice a lot. Appearance, guess that's kind of basic. Yeah, see, they didn't redo the Firefox slide for some reason. Everything else was redone, but just not the Firefox slides. And these kind of, I don't think any like actual Linux user reads the slides. Especially if you have like Calamares, it's super fun just to hold down the spacebar and watch the slides whiz by, and nobody actually reads them. These have Firefox built in with all of the Firefox bloat, of course. And the install is about to be finished. Okay, so the installation is complete, and you can just hit the restart now button. So while it's restarting, let's talk about what this release is about. So Ubuntu has always been one of those distros that a lot of things are based on, and I think that's kind of cool, and again with the bad Ubuntu logo, but it's definitely something that a lot of distros are based on, especially things like KDE Neon and Pop! OS, or they're basically like depending on Ubuntu to release a LTS so they could base their next distro off of it. And I think that Ubuntu doing these LTSs is something that's like a necessity for the Linux system to survive, because Pop! OS, KDE Neon, and of course Ubuntu itself is basically the biggest stakes in the Linux community, because those are what people recommend to new people. So if Ubuntu stopped doing LTSs, the Linux community is going to lose a lot in terms of users and things that you could recommend to new players. So let's go through the first time setup. We're not going to do any of these. Help improve Ubuntu. And here's something controversial. You probably shouldn't be having it opt out instead of opt in. So it's default on yes, send system info to canonical, but you want to hit the no, don't send info, because, this is kind of a lot of telemetry, and they're kind of asking it in a weird way. And if you're new to Linux, it's kind of scary, because you have to think, like, what would a new Linux user think about all these questions? Location services, this should probably be like on by default for noobs. Some like privacy nerds will say, GPS bad, you don't want Facebook to look at your GPS. No, most people who just switch to Ubuntu, they'll probably find out, oh no, why isn't Google Maps showing my location or something on my laptop? So I think this should be more of an opt out by default. And of course you can open software now, which we will do, and then we can hit the done, and now that disappears. Software catalog is being downloaded, and now let's open a terminal and let's just do the Neo first. Okay, download that NeoFetch. I'm pretty sure I don't need to do an update. Oh my god, Snapd already. But since this is like literally a day old, I don't think we're gonna have to do any updates. So let's print out the NeoFetch. So right here, Ubuntu 22.04 LTS x86-64. There's also Raspberry Pi images available, and I definitely used Ubuntu on a Raspberry Pi before. It's still using kernel 5.15 generic, so I wonder if there is a new kernel version. Nope, no new kernel versions. So right now we're on 5.17, so that's kind of a weird decision by Canonical not to use the 5.16 LTS Linux kernel and staying on 5.15. We have been up for 2 minutes, and this is already a lot of packages. Bash 5.1.16 terminal, and this runs on Gnome 42, which is another one of those great Gnome releases. Everything is very flat, and it definitely looks more modern. It's running on Mutter, and of course we're using the Yaru theme, and it's about like a gig on start, which isn't bad because unused RAM is wasted RAM. Of course we have a Snapd update, so let's not update Snapd. So again, one of those controversial things that Ubuntu did was now Firefox is installed as a snap by default, and I pressed the button to launch Firefox like a good 10 seconds ago, and now it pops up. So Snapd definitely reduces your opening time. And of course, I went up with the full installation, and there's definitely a lot of things that are kind of bloat. Like, this is kind of a weird application. Like, why would this be pre-installed? Maybe it's because when I installed NeoFetch, but it's kind of weird because I never actually got that app when I installed NeoFetch. Anyways, you have additional drivers for NVIDIA and things. What other apps do we have? We have Calendar, Solitaire for when your Wi-Fi drivers don't work, and now you have to play Solitaire on your new computer. Your calendar, language support, these are pretty basic. Calculator, these are like, you can't live without them. Advanced network, yeah, these are okay. You know, they're Mahjong, Mines. You shouldn't include this much games, but it's still good. Power statistics, cheese. What's Remina? Oh, it's a remote desktop client, never used it. Anyways, you can go away now. Settings, Shotwell, software and updates, software updater, startup apps, startup disk creator, Sudoku, to-do, transmission, and image magic. So a lot of those things probably could have been put in a big settings panel instead of dedicated apps, but whatever. So of course you have your repo config, updates, authentications, additional drivers. You can install your NVIDIA drivers from there. And an Ubuntu Advantage account. I never heard of that, but okay. So this definitely uses Gnome 42. I do have a video on Gnome 42 on my channel if you want to watch that. But for now, this is pretty basic. So of course the launch times are extremely long. So let's install I want to see how much config is built in. Okay, let's install Gnome Tweaks, which is oddly not installed by default. So before we use tweaks, let's go into settings. And let's network, Bluetooth. I think the background part is always like the most interesting to see what they have. Of course, you have the jammy jellyfish. I really like this one over the default one, but this one's pretty cool as well. Okay, let's go with this one. Then you have the appearance settings, which is light and dark. Now, here's the thing. So it's Yaru Dark. So let's open LibreOffice Writer. This is one of the really good experiments to see whether this dark mode is forced or not forced. So then let's switch to light. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is forced where the GTK like overwrites things, so now the background is like permanently dark. So it's not actual Gnome 42 where it's like kind of a choose your own thing. It's a screw you, it's dark now. But the colors work. You have changing folder icons, which are pretty cool. They do take a long time to refresh though. I'll just leave it at that. Auto hide the dock, panel mode. These are okay. Okay, let's go into Gnome Tweaks now. Appearance. Adwaita isn't installed by default, which is kind of weird. But yeah, these are definitely forced. On this, oh, that's the cursor. Oh, you can't change. Never found that, but okay. Then you have startup applications. That's pretty normal. So I think that's it of my review of Ubuntu 22.04 Jammy Jellyfish. There's not much new here because it's just based on GNOME 42, But it's a pretty cool release, and especially if you're one of the KDE Neon users here, which lets for people like me who use KDE Neon, you can see that it's gonna definitely get a better base, and we may get, like, let's say you're using Pop OS, and you maybe will get Gnome 42 before they release it. Thank you for watching, and that's it.